tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela have boiled over oil disputes and military posturing in the Caribbean. U.S. patrols often face Venezuelan provocations, while Venezuela's alliances with global powers heighten the stakes. In 2025, a Venezuelan attack on a U.S. asset ignited a massive U.S. retaliation, reshaping regional dynamics and shocking the world. Below is the account of this confrontation, from a daring provocation to its explosive global fallout.
On a sweltering afternoon in 2025, Venezuelan forces launched a surprise assault on a U.S. oil platform off the coast of Guyana, seizing it with commandos dropped from helicopters. The platform erupted in chaos as Venezuelan troops overpowered guards, alarms blaring across the waves. U.S. radar detected the incursion, but Venezuelan fighter jets swooped in, firing warning shots at approaching U.S. patrol boats. The atmosphere crackled with electricity as Venezuelan submarines surfaced, their missiles locked on. The U.S. Navy scrambled, but the bold move turned the Caribbean into a tinderbox, ready to detonate with unimaginable force.
The seizure sparked a furious U.S. response. F-35 jets roared from a carrier strike group, engaging Venezuelan fighters in a whirlwind dogfight over the platform. Missiles streaked through the sky, one Venezuelan jet exploding in a fireball that lit up the horizon. U.S. destroyers closed in, their guns pounding Venezuelan positions, waves churning from the blasts. Venezuelan submarines fired torpedoes, rocking a U.S. frigate and sending plumes of water skyward. Marines rappelled onto the platform, reclaiming it in brutal close-quarters combat amid gunfire and screams. Smoke billowed as oil slicks caught fire, transforming the sea into a raging inferno where every wave hid death.
The conflict surged into cyberspace with blinding speed. Venezuelan hackers crippled U.S. communication networks, disrupting fleet coordination. The U.S. countered, jamming Venezuelan radar and seizing control of their missile systems. In the skies, swarms of drones clashed, exploding in mid-air firestorms that illuminated the panic below. Hypersonic missiles from Venezuelan silos targeted U.S. bases in Puerto Rico, but laser defenses vaporized them in flashes of light. The war expanded as allies scrambled jets, turning the Caribbean into a multinational maelstrom where digital strikes and aerial fury merged in chaos.
The escalation peaked when Venezuela launched ballistic missiles at U.S. territories. In retaliation, the U.S. unleashed 1,200 cruise missiles from submarines and bombers, obliterating Venezuelan military installations in just minutes. The barrage turned coastal bases into craters of flame, explosions echoing like thunder across the continent. Venezuelan defenses crumbled under the onslaught, debris flying as command centers vanished in fireballs. Global markets plunged as oil prices skyrocketed, and satellite feeds showed entire regions engulfed in smoke, marking a devastating phase of warfare that left no room for mercy.
The strike's aftermath triggered a regional refugee crisis. Destroyed infrastructure displaced millions, flooding borders with desperate Venezuelans seeking safety in Colombia and Brazil. Camps overflowed, diseases spreading amid chaos as international aid struggled to keep up. The U.S. and Venezuela, facing humanitarian disaster, paused hostilities for emergency relief, but insurgent groups rose, seizing control of lawless zones. Autonomous drones patrolled refugee routes, while relief convoys delivered supplies under fire. The crisis temporarily curbed the war, but swelling tensions and persistent threats signaled an unstable future.
Tensions between Ukraine and Russia have escalated as North Korea sent reinforcements, supplying troops and weapons to bolster Russia's prolonged war. Ukraine's intelligence operations closely monitored these movements, but in 2025, a lightning Ukrainian strike against North Korean forces pushed the conflict to new heights, shocking the world. Below is the account of this confrontation, from a swift annihilation to an unexpected outcome that left everyone reeling. On a chilly afternoon in 2025, along a border route near Luhansk, a North Korean reinforcement convoy, 500 soldiers and tanks, moved covertly to support Russia. Ukrainian radars detected the target, and a squadron of attack drones swooped in at breakneck speed. In just 91 seconds, the drones unleashed guided missiles, obliterating the entire convoy before it could react. Tanks erupted like fireworks. North Korean soldiers scattered in flames and smoke. Debris flew in all directions, and the border area trembled. The strike turned the frontier into a fiery hell, setting the stage for a ferocious retaliation.
The annihilation triggered an immediate response from North Korea. From Pyongyang, they launched a barrage of ballistic missiles targeting Ukrainian cities, rocking Kyiv with devastating explosions. Russian forces coordinated, pounding Ukrainian positions near the border with relentless artillery. Ukraine retaliated with rapid airstrikes on Russian bases in Crimea, where North Korean weapons were stored. An air battle erupted, with Ukrainian fighters clashing with Russian Su-35s in deadly pursuits. Black smoke choked the sky, continuous explosions shaking the ground, transforming the region into a chaotic battlefield where every minute was fraught with peril.
The conflict surged into cyberspace with dizzying speed. North Korean hackers targeted Ukraine's command systems, disrupting communications and scrambling attack drones. Ukraine countered by crippling Russian and North Korean military networks, using viruses to seize missile systems. In the skies, drones from both sides collided in massive swarms, turning the air into a storm of fire. Hypersonic missiles streaked through, Ukraine's air defenses intercepting most, but debris raining down like a meteor shower, sparking widespread fires. The war expanded as NATO allies supplied Ukraine with weapons, turning the border into a multinational flashpoint where smoke and flames obscured everything. The conflict spiraled when North Korea deployed biological weapons, releasing toxic gas into Ukrainian positions, causing mass poisoning. Ukraine responded with lightning strikes on North Korean bases near the Russian border, using guided missiles to destroy targets from afar. Flames and smoke billowed from the ruined bases, sparking panic in nearby cities. Russia coordinated with ballistic missile attacks on NATO bases in Poland, while Ukraine deployed special forces to demolish biological weapon stockpiles. The global economy reeled as transport routes collapsed, and satellite imagery showed vast regions shrouded in smoke and dust, marking a brutal phase of warfare. The strike's fallout triggered internal collapse in Russia and North Korea. Protests erupted in Moscow as citizens raged over losses, leading to clashes between security forces and civilians. In Pyongyang, disgruntled generals overthrew commanders, plunging the military into chaos. Neighboring nations scrambled to contain the fallout, with international task forces hunting remaining biological weapons. Autonomous robots were deployed to decontaminate affected areas, while relief convoys delivered medicine to ravaged cities. North Korea and Ukraine paused actions to exploit the chaos, but the battlefield remained littered with wreckage, with insurgent groups rising. The collapse temporarily halted the war, but new tensions and lingering internal threats signaled an unstable future.
The Caribbean has long been a hotspot for tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela, with military standoffs and oil disputes heating the region. U.S. Navy patrols frequently face provocations from Venezuela, while Venezuela bolsters its air force to assert control. In 2025, a reckless flyby by Venezuelan F-16 jets near a U.S. Navy ship ignited a ferocious conflict, triggering a cascade of events that shook the region. Below is the account of this confrontation, from a daring aerial act to an outcome that stunned the world. On a stormy night in 2025, the Caribbean waters near Venezuela's coast churned with danger. Two Venezuelan F-16 jets, armed with air-to-ship missiles, swooped low, just hundreds of meters from the USS Farragut, a U.S. destroyer on routine patrol monitoring oil transport routes. The Venezuelan pilots broadcast warnings, demanding the Farragut leave what Caracas claimed as their airspace. The U.S. ship held its course, radar sweeping relentlessly, the atmosphere electric. Suddenly, an F-16 dove at breakneck speed, nearly grazing the ship's deck, rattling the vessel and sparking panic. A warning missile from the F-16 skimmed past, exploding on the sea's surface, sending a towering geyser skyward. Alarms screamed, searchlights pierced the darkness, and the Caribbean became a powder keg ready to erupt. The flyby sparked an immediate response. The USS Farragut activated its air defenses, shooting down a Venezuelan surveillance drone tracking the ship.
U.S. F-35 jets from Puerto Rico scrambled, engaging the F-16s in a brutal dogfight over the Caribbean sky. Air-to-air missiles streaked through the night. One F-16 shot down, crashing into the sea in a blazing fireball. Venezuelan warships emerged from the horizon, firing flares and water cannons to intimidate the Farragut. The U.S. deployed attack submarines, launching torpedoes that rocked a Venezuelan ship. Black smoke and flames spread, relentless explosions churning the waters, transforming the region into a chaotic battlefield where every second teetered on disaster. The conflict surged into the electronic realm with lightning speed. Venezuelan electronic warfare units deployed jammers, paralyzing the Farragut's radar and communications. The U.S. retaliated with a massive electronic assault, disabling Venezuela's air control systems in Caracas. U.S. satellite jamming signals scrambled the F-16 fleet, causing some jets to lose navigation and crash into the sea. Meanwhile, U.S. hackers breached Venezuela's military networks, seizing control of coastal missile launchers. In the skies, combat drones from both sides clashed in fiery storms, explosions lighting up the night. The Farragut's laser defense system intercepted most Venezuelan missiles, but debris rained down like a meteor shower, igniting fires across the sea. The war turned the Caribbean into a multi-layered flashpoint where technology and firepower merged in chaos. The conflict erupted when Venezuela, backed by regional allies, launched ballistic missiles at U.S. bases in Colombia and Puerto Rico. The U.S. responded with a lightning strike, using B-21 stealth bombers to demolish Venezuelan military airfields near Caracas. Flames and smoke billowed from the flattened bases, sparking panic across the region. Other Caribbean nations were drawn to the brink, with Colombian and Brazilian warships joining patrols to contain the spread. The regional economy reeled as oil transport routes stalled, tankers trapped in the war zone. Satellite imagery revealed massive fires and black smoke clouds, marking an unprecedented phase of warfare in the Caribbean. The conflict's fallout triggered a Caribbean regional crisis. Disrupted oil routes sent global energy prices soaring, causing fuel shortages in the Americas and Europe. Neighboring nations held emergency summits to halt escalation, deploying relief teams to aid affected cities. Autonomous robots cleaned up debris and oil spills at sea, while international special forces hunted insurgent groups exploiting the chaos to rise. The U.S. and Venezuela, facing economic and international pressure, negotiated a sudden ceasefire. But the Caribbean waters remained littered with wreckage, and regional criminal groups emerged from the turmoil. The crisis temporarily curbed the war, but new tensions and persistent threats signaled an unstable future.
Tensions between the U.S. and Iran have escalated over years of maritime confrontations in the Persian Gulf. U.S. freedom of navigation operations often provoke disputes, while Iran asserts its claims with aggressive maneuvers, like speedboat swarms and missile threats. A secret Iranian invasion fleet at the end of 2024 pushed the region to the brink, triggering a swift U.S. response that altered the global balance. Below is the account of this conflict, from a covert maritime incursion to its fiery oceanic conclusion.
On a moonless night in 2025, Iran launched a covert invasion fleet from its ports in the Persian Gulf, aiming to seize key oil platforms near the Strait of Hormuz. The armada included stealth submarines and fast attack boats loaded with missiles, slipping through international waters under radar evasion. Warnings from Iranian vessels to U.S. patrols echoed Tehran's sovereignty claims, but the fleet pressed on, targeting strategic choke points. The atmosphere grew tense as radars detected anomalies, and suddenly, Iranian boats swarmed a U.S. destroyer, forcing evasive actions. The waters around the disputed platforms became a powder keg, ready to ignite.
The invasion fleet's advance triggered U.S. surveillance systems, with satellites and underwater sensors picking up the submarine signatures. Drones deployed from a nearby U.S. carrier scanned the seas, disrupting Iranian communications with sonar pings. Fires erupted on several Iranian vessels as initial clashes unfolded, alarms blaring across the fleet.
U.S. ships fired warning shots, but Iran misinterpreted this as aggression, launching anti-ship drones. The American destroyer activated close-range defenses, downing several drones, but remaining missiles rocked the waves. The turbulent seas witnessed continuous explosions, transforming the area into a raging battlefield.
The conflict spread to cyberspace and the air. Viruses targeted Iranian navigation systems, while U.S. countermeasures jammed the fleet's radar. In the skies, fighter jets from a U.S. carrier clashed with Iranian aircraft in intense dogfights. Hypersonic missiles streaked toward the U.S. destroyer, but advanced defenses intercepted most, debris raining into the sea. The battle expanded as Allied forces from a neighboring nation joined with patrol boats, turning the invasion zone into a multinational flashpoint where explosions and black smoke shrouded the sky.
The conflict escalated uncontrollably as Iran fired ballistic missiles at U.S. bases in the Gulf. The U.S. retaliated with strikes on Iranian command centers along the coast. Cruise missiles launched from U.S. submarines destroyed these facilities, shaking regional power dynamics. Smoke rose from the ruined sites, causing panic in nearby cities. Iran's allies responded with attacks on U.S. assets in the Middle East, while U.S. carriers deployed defensive formations in the Gulf. Global economies reeled as oil routes halted, and satellite imagery revealed vast areas engulfed in smoke.
The rapid destruction of the invasion fleet triggered unforeseen geopolitical shifts. Radioactive leaks from damaged Iranian submarines contaminated Gulf waters, forcing regional nations to form emergency alliances for cleanup. Autonomous robot teams cleared debris, while international relief ships delivered supplies to affected areas. The U.S. and Iran, facing mutual devastation, halted military actions to focus on recovery. But the battlefield remained littered with wreckage, with insurgent groups exploiting the chaos to rise. The crisis temporarily curbed the war, but new alliances and lingering threats signaled an unstable future.